Okay, what's up, YouTube? How's it going, everybody? I am Colin. Welcome to Predictable Revenue Live. Today, we are talking about hiring SDRs remotely. This is something that was pretty new to us at the beginning of last year, and I think we've onboarded Freddy. How many SDRs have we onboarded in the since beginning of last year?
We've successfully onboarded 11, 11 SDRs, fully remote.
Fully remote. Okay, I think we've added quite a few more than that though, since January last year.
Oh yeah, since January, we've added, I think it's close to 20 or 18 SDRs.
There
Yeah,
you go.
but fully remote, it was 11,
11.
definitely.
Beautiful.
hmm
And so today, I'm one of the founders and and CEO over here at Predictable Revenue. I'm obviously not super involved in onboarding of SDRs, and so I thought, what better way to talk about onboarding than to bring two of the guys that have been doing this for us. And so, as you've met, Freddy Aguilar, he is one of our SDR coaches, team leads over here. He's facilitating, basically, Freddy, you're working with new hires, you're helping with the hiring process, you're running the onboarding process. And then Bernard is one of our SDR managers. Bernard, welcome to the show. Freddy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated, man.
Just for a little bit of context here, can Bernard, can you walk us through what the hierarchy or like what the career progression that an SDR could expect at Predictable Revenue? Just not to try and sell Predictable Revenue, but just to sort of show like this is where you came from. These were the steps involved in our hiring or not hiring process, but sort of like the level up process.
Okay, cool. So like almost like a career path for a SDR starting at
That
predictable revenue.
that's the word. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Um, I think I can speak a little bit of experience. I was lucky enough to start as a sales researcher actually at predictable revenue. Wanted to progress my career. Got offered to be a SDR. Um, After SDR, we had a manager before, and he implemented a lot of processes and things according to career path enablement, which put me on the track as becoming a SDR coach. And then from there, I became SDR team lead. And I was lucky enough to be promoted a couple of weeks ago to SDR manager. So the track for SDR here at Predictable Revenue is freaking awesome. It's really good, and the system is beautiful. Uh, we don't hold your hand, but we are supporting you all the way through the whole process from the beginning, definitely. So yeah,
This video brought to you by Predictable Revenue Pods. We're looking for SDRs. Come join us.
yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Unplanned. Hey, we got Hebron in the chat. What's up, buddy? And hey to everybody. So just want to say hi to chat. Let me know, what questions do you have about onboarding? How are you onboarding your reps? And then just type a one in chat if you've been involved in onboarding remotely in any context. Always helps add a little bit of texture to these. And I always find our best experience here is when we can start working on your problems, what we can, actually help you all that are in the chat. And so let me know what you're if you're involved in hiring onboarding remotely, and if so, what are some of your favorite tips and some of the things that you've done? And so in the last probably couple of months, we've hired and onboarded 11. We've probably got another, I think, 8 that we're needing to hire right now. And so talk to me, like, before we get into the onboarding process, Julia, you can't type a one, of course. Julia's in there going like, I'm hiring remotely. Like, yes, if you're a marketing person interested in predictable revenue, talk to Julia in chat. She's right there. And she has identified as hiring remotely and onboarding remotely. Um, Before we jump into onboarding, it's obviously hiring is like, I guess maybe my question is, have we changed our hiring profile? Have we changed our hiring process at all since we've been 100% remote?
I, Freddy, I want to jump in here, and if Freddy, you want to take over. Um,
Yeah.
for me, if we start talking about onboarding, I feel like the term that comes to mind is winemaking almost. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So um, the I think that my uncle used to say is like you can make a good wine of good grapes and you can make a bad wine of good grapes, but you can't make a good wine of bad grapes. Not that people there's bad grapes, but it speaks to the
Mm.
analogy. And I feel like our hiring process is did a 180 and it's really, really good. Now the processes that we have in place, it sets us up and Freddy as
Mm-hmm.
onboarding coordinator makes his job super smooth. And that we lose players and all the other things that goes with it. But Freddy, if you want to talk about the hiring process a little bit, that'd be awesome.
For sure.
Yes,
And
I would
Freddie,
love
before you
to.
do, we
Go
just got a couple. We got Pablo and Joanna in or Joanna in chat, just throwing their support in for the two of you guys. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Um, so yeah, the hiring process, I don't think that it has changed. But the word that I would say is it has improved in the last 6 to 8 months. Um, Mostly because when we first started, like Bernard said, we were all in an office, and so from the beginning, we all just kind of chipped in the hiring process. But then as we progressed and as we learned, some mistakes were made along the way.
mhm.
Then we just implemented different things. We improved. We took the information that we were getting, the data from those mistakes that we got, and then we of course we we came to what we have right now, where it's a very very long process. It can take anywhere from 2 weeks to a whole month of interviews with different people, and then if all goes well, then you're hired, right? And so I think that is the word that I would say is improvement that in the hiring process.
Right on. And I think our chat is entirely filled with predictable revenue SDRs at this point. Hey Thomas or Tomas, how are you, man? I'm
Yes.
still adjusting to the this putting the emphasis on the correct syllables. Um, but I totally agree. Having gone from hiring in person to going remote, I thought we were going to have to do things dramatically differently. And we do have a couple things that we've learned, and specifically, there's one thing from Seth that maybe we can get into a little bit later. But for anybody that's curious, we've based our framework, our hiring process is based on the book Who. So I'll throw a link, or Veronica can throw a link in chat shortly. And if you're curious, I'm gonna throw a link in. I'm gonna throw a link to Bernard and Freddy's LinkedIn's, and if you're curious and want to see like a little bit more about the process, feel free to hit them up on LinkedIn. So I'll throw that out there. But I'm curious, Bernard, can you just walk us through like what are the high level steps that somebody has to go through to get hired here at Predictable Revenue?
Okay. Definitely. Before I do that, I just want to. Hopefully we can do some shout outs here, but we have an awesome onboarding coordinator Freddy, but then our hiring coordinator first Seth and Carla. I mean, I just have to give them a shout out there right now. She might be the best person to speak to this, but initially her whole process changed and Seth had a big involvement in there. Me, not as much, but from what I know is, according to the Who process and the Who book, uh, she does a qualifying interview. Um, Seeing in that we are from where we are hiring, um, English proficiency and all those things is really important. So there's a couple of English proficiency tests. Um, as soon as a person qualifies, he or she qualifies for that, she gets moved on to, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a Who interview. So a Who
The screening.
interview, screening interview first, so screening interview first, and that falls on Carla specifically. So if the person passes that one, then she would schedule a Who interview. The Who interview would either go to either one of the managers or team leads at that time. Our structure is getting shaken up a little bit now, but for now, we're trying to revert that to the managers specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Who interview is focused on your previous job experience. What have you been doing for the last 10 years work-wise? So we dig into that, um, not looking for red flags, but looking for concerns maybe or stuff that might pop up in the future. So already now we are vetting and preparing for onboarding because we want A players for the onboarding, which makes that super easy. And that rolls over into a happy candidate, somebody that passes the 3 months really easy after hiring and continue performing and progressing and predictable revenue. So the who interview is really important to see how that person fits in here. After the who interview, there is a skills assessment. We actually do skills assessments, which is really important. This changed and filter out quite a few candidates at that time. And I think it's really important too, but the skills assessment is comprised of voicemail and of a written email test as well. This gets graded, sort of. We have a form that we have, and it gets graded. And if you pass, you pass. Otherwise, we will give you feedback, and you can go. We will give you some constructive feedback on your emails, your voicemail, see if you can adjust and if you're coachable. Then after that, you resubmit it, and then we will communicate if you would go forward into the next part of the process. So if you pass, you pass. If you don't, you get another chance, and then you will pass to another process. Like I said, after that one, there's a focus interview. We're adjusting the focus interview a little bit, but we focus, Freddy, correct me if I'm wrong, we focus on hustle and I don't know, getting stuff done. You know,
Yep.
I can't remember exactly what all of them is, but there's 3 topics specifically, maybe Colin, if you can help with that one. But I think there's 3 specific topics that we focus on in the focus interview. And pass the focus interview, the big one and the big kicker that we try to involve a lot more people of the team also is the culture fit. Culture fit, super fun time. You're going to bring a game. We used to have culture fits in the office, which was awesome because we had bring a beer, bring some chips, play a game, get to meet the people. But now we had to adjust our whole process, and it's like drinking a beer virtually is just as fun as drinking a beer in the office, I have to say. So just going to throw that out there. But yeah, we definitely do. The culture fit is a big part, and we will talk about it a little bit later on too. And I think like culture at predictable revenue is a hot topic, and it's really important, and it's a trickle down effect from management too. The kind of culture that we create here is awesome, and the people want to be here. So culture fit, very important. And then we extend you an offer if we like you. So yeah. That's it. No, I'm just kidding. That's not what I think to say. But, go through the whole process, and then we will welcome you in the company, and then the real work starts then. So the interview process is a lot of work, but then the real kicker starts. The real work starts with Freddy, I think. Though.
Yeah, I'll point out a couple areas, and we'll get to Freddy in just a half second. Apologies for the cough. It's not COVID or anything. I just nose issues. This one likes to close, and when this closes, I cough. It's a really fun feature. So there's been a couple of things that we've learned, a couple of variations. And the first one is with Who the Book, we split the focus interviews. So typically the focus interviews, you identify the 3 areas for focus. In the Who interview, you say, oh, here are the 3 gaps in our knowledge that we don't have. So, let's focus on those, literally focused interviews on those. But what we notice is that for SDRs, we're looking for the same thing. And Who is designed really for hiring executives and like upper management. And so we've made a modification to the focus where we say, I think we look for curiosity, hustle, and culture fit. And so we've got 3 different focus interviews, and then we have a culture fit interview. The reason we do culture fit twice is it's super important, and 2, if we think it's going to be a bad culture fit, like the actual culture fit interview is pretty intense. It's pretty like it involves the whole team. They're playing a board. They're playing some sort of game. They're drinking beer. You don't really want to be putting too many of those on your team when you're not going to hire the person. And so the focus is one area where we split. I believe the culture fit is something that's not part of Who, the book, and it's something that we learned from, I can't remember. So yeah, we used to play this. We have this game that we play during onboarding that we haven't figured out how to do remotely, but we will. And I'm not going to give any hints because it's hilarious and diabolical and evil. And I'm not going to give away any hints on the internets here. But we used to do this game as part of the hiring process. And what we realized after we potentially lost that candidate because of this, the evilness of this game, was that we probably should play this in the onboarding, because it's fun, but in the wrong context, it's not fun, and so we were like, okay, well, we still want to get a chance to see people perform under like somewhat artificially stressful in an artificially stressful environment. So why don't we get them to teach us something? And then we had a couple people that played board games. They're like, why don't we get them to teach us a game? And some of my favorite games that I've learned have come out of this interview process. I still remember Cole's interview, and he showed up with paper. I was like, what the hell is this, man? He's like, do you guys have a bowl? We're like, you didn't bring your own bowl. You brought paper. I think he brought pens, to his credit, and I was like,
Oh my goodness.
what the hell is happening here? And it was actually one of the most fun games that we ever played. And it's this game, and it's sort of like a mix of like charades and this. Anyway, the whole idea, the last part, the culture fit, is they're teaching us a board game. We get to see them sweat. So that's another variation from who. And then the final one is the skills assessment. And that's pretty unique to hiring SDRs. We've added that in. Maybe Freddy, can you talk a little bit about what that skills assessment looks like? And then we'll jump into, we've made the hire. Let's talk about onboarding.
Yeah. So the skills assessment, and maybe Bernard can speak to this as well. It involves 3 emails and 3 cold emails. 3 voicemails and 3 cold emails. So what we're looking for is English proficiency, of course, and then the second one is how fluent or how persuasive they can be. So we task them with represent predictable revenue, or reach out to people on behalf of predictable revenue, and so we ask them to reach out to a specific company, which is World. I can't remember the name of the company, but
Say
so
Disney
the point
World.
of it is.
Yeah.
So
Jonas
the
happy.
point, John is happy. Yeah. So the point of it is so they can do some research on the company, research on predictable revenue, and then also in Disney World. And so they're looking to talk to the right person, and then of course offer our services as predictable revenue. And so we grade them, like Bernard said, we grade them, and then we give them some feedback. And then so what we're looking for is not perfection, but of course we're looking for coachability, if they're coachable, if they're open for feedback and things like that. And so that's pretty much what it looks like. But of course Bernard can talk to this
Before
a
you
little bit
jump
more
in,
since
Before you jump in, Johanna goes, "Woohoo, Disney! Thank you, I am so happy." That's exactly what she sounds like, for those of you that don't know her. Spot on.
Nice.
I'm sorry,
Um,
Johanna.
sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
Not so exactly. Yeah. I think the skills assessment, Freddy, I think you covered all the bases. Colin, to us, like the skills assessment is a big kicker in the interview, because we can identify right at the beginning, before we get into the onboarding and all that stuff, that we don't have to go to a point where we have to potentially manage somebody out because of the skills that person might not have. So the skill set, like Freddy said, is to observe understanding of what you're really doing as an SDR, because the role is really new in Mexico. This is not, we can't go to other companies and it's like, hey, do you have SDRs? This is a new process. It's a new role in country. And then to identify if people understand the role, can they do this job? And then obviously the other things that's really important, like the courses, grammar, writing ability and all that stuff is really important. But what is really cool too is that we use, and Colin, you know this too, is like we use an EOS kind of scoring system on our emails and our voicemails. And we have criteria and we score them according to the EOS scoring system, which facilitates and makes it very clear if somebody would pass or not pass, if we give him another chance or we don't give him another chance, and give them constructive feedback afterwards, and then adjust and come back and give another feedback session. So I feel like that was like you mentioned, that's a big part of the interview process that's not in the who, like you said, that Seth brought on to that he introduced into the company for us here, which was super valuable for us right now.
Super helpful. And here Brand is saying that for his cultural fit, he played the frog jumps in the river.
Oh, wow. I wasn't involved
With
in
the
this. That's news to me.
That sounds like you guys all went skinny dipping. What is that game?
That's news
I
to me.
remember I remember Alicia's, I don't know if Alicia's in the chat, but I remember Alicia's culture fit.
Yeah.
Like, who's that lady bringing her computer into the office? And she brought her whole Apple MacBook or something to the computer.
It's an iMac.
Was one of the funnest games I played. As an iMac, yeah. She brought it into the office and like, this is awesome.
I can't remember the name. Because we played that game, a couple of times ever since, but I can't remember the name of the game.
Jackbox is the Jackbox party pack. Yeah, I know
That
this.
was so fun.
It was it's the same maker of and we'll get off of this tangent in a second here, but the Jackbox people made one of my favorite games for my first like computer when I was a small child. It was called You Don't Know Jack. Yeah. Alex is in there. Rorig is in there. Like everybody's. I think we got like 150 people. No, I'm just kidding. I think we got all of our SDRs in chat. But yeah,
Nice.
loved watching this. This tiny person walk in with this huge computer. You're like, what? Can I help you with that? No, I'll set it up. No. Like, okay,
I got it.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, so you can tell we have a little bit of fun, and I think one of the privileges of working here for me is just all the great people. And if our hiring process sounds like too much work and a pain in the ass, it's certainly a lot of work. But if you can see, like I can probably jump on, come on this Zoom, this stream with like any two people from our pods department. Any two people from the company, and we're going to be laughing and joking and having a good time. Now, Bernard happens to be probably one of the most bubbly people here. But like, this is the result of a really strong hiring process is you get good people that everybody gels with. And it's just, so if all the things that we've been talking about sound like too much work, they're not. They're absolutely worth it. Yes, it slows things down. Yes, there's a cost. 100% the cost is worth it. It is like reading, when I read Who the book 5 years ago, it is potentially the single most, I'd say top 3 most impactful books that's had on the company. And I'd have to say number 1 is Predictable Revenue, simply because I didn't know Aaron and I read Predictable Revenue and I was like, well, I'm Canadian. And he wrote a book about cold email. It'd be rude not to cold email him. And so I cold emailed him and he was crazy helpful. And now I'm the CEO. So that's probably book number 1, but I'd say book number 2 would have to be Who the book, because it overnight, in 3 months, it improved the overall quality of fit of individuals. We weren't miraculously finding these amazing talent sources where, suddenly there are just better people. It gave us the lens and the framework to, with the pipeline we had, to find the people that were going to be great fits. It was almost like going to a new country and not speaking the language at all. And that was sort of how I think about our hiring process before Who. It's like, you're in Mexico and you don't speak any Spanish. And you're not in one of the touristy areas and you're like, all I know is cerveza. So that's all you're going to get.
And baño.
And baño, yeah. The two words I know. I'm not going to try and... Anyway,
there you go.
So let's say we've gotten to the point where we obviously have a bunch of fun and we've hired somebody. The hangover from their culture fit has worn off, and now it's time for the real work to begin. What's up, Jared? Can we post the 2 books I just mentioned? Well, one is Predictable Revenue. If you don't know that, then come on. And Veronica posted Who the book a couple lines above, so have a look at that one. You just read that. Jared's also with Predictable Revenue. I think we got the whole team on here. This is awesome. So the hangover has subsided, and now we've got somebody that we need to onboard. They're pretty good people, but pretty good people are gonna, not hang out for too long if we don't teach them how to do the job. Especially because you guys said this is not a common role. There are more people in one city in Mexico than there are in all of Canada. And yet there are only 2,000 or 3,000 SDRs in all of Mexico that I was able to find on LinkedIn. So this is not a very common role. So how do you guys go from somebody who doesn't know what SDR stands for to somebody who's booking meetings? And in my opinion, booking meetings pretty damn fast. Like when I compare benchmarks to, how we hire and onboard and ramp, or like the ramp expectations of an SDR in Mexico versus Vancouver, they're identical. You almost might say, I love Julian. You almost might say that, especially now that you got, Bernard and Sarah and Abby, you got more SDR management firepower down in Mexico than you do up in Vancouver. No offense to Julian. I love you, buddy.
Shots fired.
You're going down. So talk to me about how we teach somebody this new role and how you guys make them so damn successful. I was going to swear there, but I pulled back.
Yeah.
All right.
I have to bite my tongue too. So.
Hopefully I don't have to, but the first day is all about introductions. So we make them, of course, feel welcomed. We've already got to know them a little bit in the culture fit and also in the whole who process. And so we of course know a little bit about them. And so the first day is all about introductions. So we introduce them to the smaller team, the SDR team, and then we start with introductions to other departments in the first day, right? And so, but in the very, very first day, we talk about shadowing sessions. And so in the shadowing sessions is they get to see what it's like to be an SDR from the very, very first day. So they start shadowing sessions with, it could be a legacy SDR or someone brand new, and so it doesn't really matter because it's the same school or it's the same process between, a legacy SDR or someone a little bit newer. So what we're looking for is just, expose them to the life of the SDR. And then of course we have study blocks, we have, introductions. And so the first week is all about the theory. So we expose them to a lot of reading material, a lot of videos, the people in predictable revenue. And then the second week is all about introducing them to the technology that they're going to be using. So, the CRM that we use, the tools that we use and things like that. And so it's a little bit more practice, hands-on experience and things like that. And so we try to focus, or we try to bring everything in the first 2 weeks. So we call the first 2 weeks the onboarding process or the onboarding period, and then we move on to the ramp up period in the 3 months, or the first 3 months of the SDR. So yeah, that's pretty much what it looks like. The first week is theory. The second week is of course the practice.
I think Freddy's being very modest here. This is his brainchild. So talking about your own child might be, you get very flustered and very excited about that. I can hear it with Freddy too. So this onboarding process is pretty freaking sweet. And like Freddy said in the beginning, it's like the first week is like meet and greet the people, like really try to meet everybody, because this alludes back to the culture, because we have to jump back in the culture. We have to meet the people. We have to like rub off on people a little bit. And it's like this bubbly personality needs to rub off on people, get people excited. And then the second week is meet and greet the technology. And it's like, what's a CRM about? What the fudge is outreach? I have no idea. It's like, and you have all these sessions, you have all this time with these things. So Yeah, and then the ramp up period afterwards, very important. Keep following up.
And there's one particular meeting that's more important than the others, than all of the others by a long shot, right, Freddie?
I know. Yes, definitely. That's usually on the second week. They get to meet the CEO of the company. So
Nice.
yeah.
It's because you guys are right. Like if I look at our hiring plan, and Carla, if you're listening, earmuffs, we want to hire like 80 SDRs this year. Like that's what the plan looks like. And so we're currently sitting around 60 people, 50, 60 people, give or take. I can't count that high, so I got to use Excel or a Google Sheet to count up that high.
Or calculator.
So like chances are we're gonna roughly double, and to go from 0 to 60, it took us like 9 years. I mean, we were building the CRM for the first couple of years, so that doesn't really count. But like probably 5 to 60 in like 4 or 5 years, which is pretty strong growth. But it's not lightning fast. It's not doubling. There was maybe one time we doubled in a year and it was like 5 to 10, and that was a big year. But every time you grow the company by that much and you have that many new people percentage wise that you're ingesting into the company, you need really strong onboarding so that the culture stays the same. And it's not going to stay exactly the same because it's going to be a composite of the people that you bring on. But the hiring process is geared. If you remember, I was talking about there's two culture fit, elements of the hiring process to make sure that these people are going to reinforce the culture and not take away from it. Because it very easily, and we've seen this at certain points, we've had dips, we've had people that sort of created cliques, or we've had these things, and it's, sometimes it's just a conversation, say, hey, that's not how we do things here. And sometimes it's people that don't fit within the organization.
Yeah.
And those are just really, really important things for us to stay on top of. And like it's not just about this meeting I was bringing up. It's not just about me, and we're trying to, like, one of the ways that we want to make sure that we are able to kind of keep the company feeling small is to get them familiar with everybody on the senior team. Right now, we're doing just a meeting with myself, I believe, but I want to say we've got plans in place to slowly onboard them to meet everybody else in the senior team over the course of X period of time. And there's quite a bit of exposure, and we do some fun things, and we do some silly things. And Alice is in chat and probably playing Jackbox with a bunch of her colleagues right now. No, probably not. I do want to play that game again. That was awesome. So you guys are being super modest because you're going from somebody who doesn't know how to spell SDR to somebody who's booking meetings in a couple of weeks. So let's dive in. What does that first week look like? What are the things sort of on a day-to-day basis? What are we looking at? Like, what are you teaching them? What are they learning? What are they going through?
Okay, so I can touch on that for sure. So like I mentioned before, we talk about exposing them to the day of the SDR from the get-go. So we have two shadowing sessions scheduled daily. So they go in, and they get on a Zoom with either a legacy or a newer SDR. So the objective is just to expose them to what it looks like. Making calls, do the research, write an email, answer to an email, blah blah. The works. And so exposing them to the SDR life of or life in the day of an SDR is crucial. Because they get exposed to it. They get hands-on or they get to see what it's like. Then the first week is a lot of introductions, keeping the culture alive, and I think that's the biggest part. And then we talk about uh, the and then we pair them up with a mentor. So they have daily check-ins at the end of the day, and usually is to answer questions about anything that they might have seen that day that they just don't know the answer to. And like you said, the most of the people here in Mexico, and probably like 99% of people in Mexico, have no idea what an SDR does. And so we give them the material, we expose them to what it's like, but we also have to have someone that is going to be there with them, at the end of the day. And so we pair them up with a mentor. We call them a coach, mentor, TL, or team lead. And so the purpose of that is so that they know, who to go to at the end of the day with questions. And then yeah, so the first week is mostly about exposure. We don't let them get their feet wet just yet, because we want to make sure that they understand like the high overview of what it's like to be an SDR. So it's mostly theory, reading material, watching videos, and then in the second week, that's when we dump everything on them. We teach them how to write a whole sequence, how to write an email, the different aspects of writing a cold email, how to open a call, what a compelling story is, or the value proposition is. And so the first week is theory, and then and yeah, it's the second week is practice. So so yeah, that's what it really looks like.
That first week too. So I just want to add to Freddy's stuff. It's like that first week, when we say meet everybody, you really meet everybody. You meet head of departments. You go meet Julian. You go meet Julia. You go meet Lavinia. You meet Neve, and you meet these people. You get introduced to your account strategist, your potential account strategist, or the project you're going to be on, or some random account strategist. You go meet the SR team because you are going to work really closely with the SR team too. So that whole, we try to create that whole line of like no doors, no doors. Just go to anybody, ask that person questions, because um, we want to create that right at the beginning, that we want you to work here, but we want you to grow here too. Go see what other people is doing. Go learn as much as you can about what everybody is doing, and go meet Manuel. Manuel is a big part of the Mexico operations. You sign a contract with him. You do all your stuff with Manuel. It's like, go meet him. Go meet Diego. He's the manager for the SRs. Go meet Jordan. She's going to help you with Salesforce stuff. So creating that open door, relaxed policy, don't stress out. We are here for you. Kind of.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that just touching on the culture in general here at PR, it talks volumes, because I can pretty much send a message to pretty much anyone, and I know that they're gonna agree to whatever the favor is, or whatever I need them to do pretty much. And so if I ask them, what, I've got a uh, a class of new SDRs, and I need them to see what it's like to be an AS or an account strategist, and I know that at least one or two people are gonna be like, yeah, just count me in, book some time on my calendar. And so the openness, the willingness for everyone to participate in the onboarding process makes this whole process uh, you know 1,000 times a lot easier. And so I think a lot of it is the participation. Everybody's so willing to participate that yeah, it just makes my life so much easier, for sure.
So easy that maybe you should be paying us to work here then.
I don't think so. Not yet.
So I'm curious, this how long, we talked about the first couple of weeks, how long does onboarding last? And before you guys
So
answer that, there's Jared in the chat, but it wasn't actually Jared from PR. I didn't look at his last name. He's saying I'm not with Predictable Revenue, so I apologize for crapping on you there, bud. I just sort of glanced down at the chat, and I was like, oh, it's Jared. I didn't even look at the last name. So glad to have you. Apologize for ripping on you, but the name of the first book is Predictable Revenue. I'll throw that in the chat right now for you. But Freddy, Bernard, how long does onboarding last?
so it lasts 2 weeks. Sorry. Go ahead, Bernard.
No, no, it's like I was gonna make a stupid joke, so don't
Go
listen
for
to
it.
me.
Go
I
for
was
it.
gonna like onboarding is a permanent thing. It's a continuous process. It's like there is dates. It's like you get onboarded for the rest of your life here at Predictable Revenue. It's a continuous learning process. You keep meeting people in and out. So sorry, Freddy. The details, por favor.
Yeah, no, and it's true. Like I don't think that we should ever stop learning. Uh, but uh, but for you to be able to be you know what's the word I'm looking for? So to be able to start reaching out to people on behalf of one of our clients or one of our projects, the minimum requirement is 2 weeks. So the onboarding process officially is 2 weeks, and then we have what is called the ramp up period after that, which lasts 3 months. So yeah, that's after the first 2 weeks, you're officially off the hook of being called the newbie or the new hire, and then you're called, a the in the probation period.
Mhm.
And so it's so at that time you're already, making calls, reaching out to people, sending emails, and so it's the first three months you're already exposed to client meetings, talking to prospects and booking meetings. So yeah, that's pretty much what it looks like.
What is the record, Freddy, for after the first 2 weeks booking the first meeting? It's like, I think, I can't remember who it is, but it's like 2 or 3 days after onboarding, made a call, book a meeting. It's like, what the
The
fuck
first
just
week,
happened? Yeah.
so they
Yeah.
they started, I believe it was the first week of or the second week of November, or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And so they got done with their 2 weeks, and then
Mm-hmm.
they officially started working on behalf of a client, and they booked the meeting in the first week, I think it
Yeah.
was. So closer, I think it was Thursday or Friday.
Like,
It might have been, yeah, I can't remember the exact date, but I think it was within the first week of
how dare you
reaching
not
out to
know the
people.
exact date you're fired?
We need time and date.
Yeah. And maybe to put this in context, and we're not perfect at all of this, but I'd say there's if I think about the time scales, there's the first 2 weeks, which is onboarding. Then there's the first 3 months, which is when you're ramping up as an SDR. And there's continued education and check-ins and things like that with your buddy, with your coach, with your manager. And then we move into the sort of quarterly development process. And I think this is probably not something that we've I don't know if it's something that I started doing a couple cycles ago, but I don't know if it's made its way down to the SDR team yet. I think
It's
we've
It
trickling
we've
has.
down.
started, right?
Yeah.
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 It's trickling down, definitely. Yeah.
And so it was Pablo saying it was me 2 days ago.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, Pablo did. Yeah, he just onboarded on, and then, yeah, Pablo, whoo,
How long did it take you to book your first meeting, Pablo? Like a number of hours?
hours.
The guy's crushing it.
Minutes.
But yeah, yeah, so there's like, if we think about, like Bernard said, it doesn't actually end, it just sort of changes shape. And so there's a lot more hand holding in the first 2 weeks. There's a little bit less in the first 3 months. And then it moves to sort of a quarterly own your growth kind of cadence where we're planning out, this is where you need to grow. Here's your learning opportunities. Let's help you hit them. And then we're doing that on a quarterly basis. So that's the whole kind of training, planning, coaching rhythm, so to speak.
Correct.
Cool. There was one thing that was interesting that was in there, about there's a step or a check in your process, that says like what I think it's at the end. You guys do this at the end of every hiring everybody, or maybe it's the middle or near the end. But there's this step where you're asking them, how can we improve? Can you talk to me about the importance and maybe some examples of things that we've learned and actually improved because of that feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have what so one thing that I might have failed to mention is that, we have different managers within the POTS organization, right? And so they get paired up with the manager that they're going to be reporting up to. And so, but before there were managers, there were team leads, right? And so they were paired up with the team lead. They were assigned to a team lead, and so it was the job of the team lead and the SDR, or the onboarding coordinator, to make sure that the person was, or that the new hire was given everything that they needed, and of course making sure that he was, going to be successful, right? And so they check in with that person at the end of the day, on a daily basis. But then every 3 days, I would say, I have what is called a temperature check in with them. So me as officially the SDR onboarding coordinator, I check in with them just to kind of see where they are, what they need, and how they're liking their whole process, pretty much. Because I know that there's a lot of people that come from sales experience, maybe not so much in the tech industry or the SaaS industry, but definitely in the sales industry, and so they come in with some experience, and so we want to make sure that they're given, or so that we want to make sure that we meet them where they are, right? And so we give them the tools that they need in order for them to be successful, but we also have to make sure that, you know, we know exactly where they are. And so first day they come in, I check in with them. I talk to them about the whole process. I share with them the what the agenda or the calendar looks like for the first 2 weeks, and then and so that's typically on the Monday. But then on Wednesday, I check in with them. Hey, how are you liking it? Are you absorbing the information enough or quickly enough? What else do you need? Right. And then by Friday, I do the same thing again. How are you liking it? Are you understanding? Do you have any questions? And then I'll do that again on the following Wednesday, and then at the end of the 2 weeks, I do it again. And so it's four temperature check-ins with them, so I can get some feedback, and I give them the tools that they need, so I meet them where they are. So that's pretty much what it. Yeah. So that's in really high level what it looks like, but definitely at the end of the 2 weeks, I again sit down with the new SDRs. Sometimes it can be in a one-on-one setting, or it could be in a group setting, depending on the situation. But I get just feedback, like, what did you learn? What did you like? What didn't you like? You know, if we could have done something differently, what would it have been? Because the thing is that, like you said, Colin, is we don't know everything, and so we're here to grow, to learn, and to improve, of course. And so we take that feedback, and then we just apply it in the next time around. And
But
so
for like,
go ahead, sorry,
so,
Bernard.
so no, like what Freddy said, we learned stuff. I was like, I remember the first time we did the onboarding, we booked that calendar. Oh my goodness gracious! There was not a PP break in between sessions. You you were logged in the whole day long, and yeah, definitely lesson learned. You know, so like Freddy, we adjusted the calendar, feedback sessions about what did they find the most value out of? Did they find more value out of shadowing, or did they find more value out of um, just being quiet and looking at the click path of what the SDR is doing, just to see where he's clicking and what he's saying, and not specifically listen to the calls. But um, I'm like that. I'm monkey see, monkey do. That's how I learn. You know, other people learn other way. They go watch a video, or they go read how to do it. So we going forward, we're going to start trying to look at how people learn stuff to adjust, maybe according to the group, how we're going to adjust the onboarding process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
everybody has a bathroom break right now on the calendar. Just want to throw that out there.
That was one of the funniest thing, is that the first time that I was, I was led to be in charge of the onboarding process. Yeah, it happened to me, that I booked back to back meetings for like 4 or 5 hours,
Mhm.
and then at the end of the week they were like, you know what, I need to go to the bathroom. And so that was the first thing I was like, holy crap, I didn't think of that. And so the next time around, I was like, okay, so I'm gonna make sure that in between meetings, I give them, 5, maybe 15 minutes, so that they can, go to the bathroom, get some coffee, or whatever it is, go take a walk. But yeah, that that was one of the funniest things. Is
Do you specify bathroom break number one, bathroom break number two?
Yeah. Number one, number two.
No, not at the moment, but yeah, it was one of those feedback sessions that I was like, holy crap, I didn't think of that. Sorry about that.
Yep.
It's funny that,
Yeah.
like, I think one of the best things is the fact that we've got these little hooks, these little opportunities to adjust, to check, built into your process. I love that. Bernard, and Freddie, you were just talking about this was a surprise. Hey, we didn't give the person bathroom breaks. Bernard, and all the things that we've learned over doing this the last year, what's been a surprise for you?
How successful it is. It's like I really didn't expect. So to be 100%, we went into this whole thing super blind, and Freddy can attest to that too. I bet. Freddy reached out to Seth. Seth said, "Go for it. Let's change this thing." Freddy reached out to me. We came up with a plan, and we're working on it. Like with this blinders on, we're like, okay, we're just going to focus on what we're doing, and then. Lo and behold, after the first, I think we onboarded Donna and Vasco, and it was super successful. I enjoyed it. They didn't have bathroom breaks, but that got adjusted, obviously. So we got them going, and then I think, Freddy, after the onboarding process, maybe like a week later, we read an article about how onboarding has changed in the last 3 months after the pandemic hit. And it's like, oh, okay, check, check, check. And we did all these things without knowing that we were doing it. And that was the biggest surprise to me. And then Bobby came in. Bobby was a manager with Seth for a little bit with us too, just to help out. And he looked at our onboarding process and it's like, oh my God, what do I need to change? I don't need to change anything. This thing is good. Tweaked 1 or 2 things here and there. And I think those are the 2 biggest surprises for me. And I know it's not related to the onboarding process itself, but the overarching process. Like we did this, or Freddy did this, and he took the lead on it, and it was successful. It's going well as of now.
Yeah, I think the biggest satisfaction is, like Bernard said, is how successful it is, because you welcome them to the company, you teach them what the little things that you show them the ropes, but then they're on their own after that. I mean, not technically on their own, but working remotely, and so you're not sitting right next to them, and you're not taking care of them, you're not hand holding them through the whole process. And so the biggest satisfaction is to see them that after 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks of being onboarded, they're booking meetings, and they're making the calls, they're reaching out to people, and they're booking meetings, which is the biggest satisfaction out of this whole process, and which is one thing that we didn't think about at the beginning. We were just given a task, we put something together, and then wow, it just happened to work out.
It's a measurable metric too. Like the meetings booked, the onboarding was successful, you booking meetings, that's something we can measure. And that is, I think that's what Freddy mentioned, just like that metric that we can measure is the meetings, and it's successful. And that alludes to the onboarding and then obviously the hiring process.
Right on. I think one of the surprises, not surprise, I'll call it a pleasant surprise, is when the pandemic hit, we pushed everybody remote because it just wasn't safe, responsible to be having everybody in the offices. This was at an awkward time when I think we had just signed a lease for a huge space.
Yeah. Yep.
Which you could look at it one way and say, oh, we just signed this lease. But on the flip side, we signed a lease on a much smaller space than we were also thinking of. We're like, oh, maybe we just swing big and like sign it. It was like 2 or 3 times as big. So like, yeah, it could have been a whole lot worse. Unfortunately, Manuel was there to get us out. I don't know how, but he did. Love you, Manuel. And I think the surprise for me, it was a pleasant surprise, was that nothing exploded. We went from a company, and we, from the get-go, my co-founder Preston and I never lived, and my co-founders Preston and Aaron and myself never lived in the same city. So in some ways, and also I'm allergic to printers, so no paper allowed at the office. And I think it was those sort of things that had set us up from the get-go, that we were fairly remote friendly. Like we'd had remote employees before that were full-time. I had never been, but most of the people in the office, while they had maybe worked remote a day or 2 a week or occasionally, nobody had worked remote. There weren't too many people that had worked remotely full-time. And I was surprised that all of these individuals in a new role, on a new team, and the wheels didn't fall off. pleasantly surprised. And I think it comes down to hiring process. We hired well, we had a good culture. It was, we had a strong enough team that they were adaptable and they were empowered enough to make the decisions. Because I'm, terrified to think of like what it would have been like if we had, a variety of people that weren't great fits. It would have just amplified that. It's so like the amount of time that we actually interact. I mean, between Freddy and Bernard, this is probably, the time that we spent on this call today is probably, I don't know, 5x the amount of one-on-one time that we've spent, over the last couple of months. And so every little thing that you do is amplified because as soon as you close that Zoom window, you're on your own. And not literally on your own, but there's nobody to look, you can't look over your shoulder and be like, oh, hey, Alice, how does this work? Or Joanna or Sarah or, so-and-so. And so many of these things, we've had to go from things that were accidental and really codifying those and building them into process. And I think that's maybe one of the big things that we've kind of talked about it, but we haven't called it out specifically, is that I think the two of you, or I shouldn't say just the two of you, but the SDR team and the onboarding team, and just everybody in general here at Predictable Revenue has done a really great job of just writing things down. Like, here were the things that we liked that we were doing before we went remotely. Now, like, let's intentionally find ways of replicating those in Zoom. And no, they're not always going to be as good. But I'd say, I don't know. I think it's been a pretty great experience. So that was a huge surprise for me. And I think one big takeaway was just it made us be a lot more intentional about writing things down, which again probably reinforced and made us better. I think there's an argument to be made that we're a better, stronger company now. We're better at onboarding SDRs now than we were pre-pandemic.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that one too, definitely.
Yeah, and one of those things is that that you learn along the way is to trust the process. And so you write things down, you look at the process, you get feedback, but then you also have to make sure that some things will have to take its form or take its path. And so you just have to let me as a somewhat control freak a little bit, that to be able to let other people learn it in their own way, to understand that it's not always going to be this straightforward path, that they just have to let the process, or you just have to trust the process and let things run it their course, pretty much.
I'm curious if there's anything that you found that doesn't work anymore. So if there were things that maybe we were doing before, we're like, this doesn't make sense, now that we're not in an office.
Office versus now, or sorry, Colin, office versus now, or
yeah, like now that we're remote
versus
now that we're remote, is there anything that we were doing 12 months ago or doing specifically in the office that just doesn't make sense to do anymore?
I don't think so. I think and I think that I'm speaking for the whole group, is that it's about it's more about the people than it is about the job or what it is that you're doing. I don't know. And so I don't that is a really good question. I don't know, Bernard, can you talk to that?
I think we took everything that we had in the office that was freaking awesome and we applied it here in this onboarding process. I'm not 100% sure what I would throw away from the previous from the onboarding in the office, but I think we are more concise with our decisions. We can't allow mistakes to happen. We have to be extra lean and mean in our decisions now. There's no gray area. It's yes or no, and that's it. And maybe in the past we were a little bit more relaxed about criteria, and we're a little bit more open to adjusting because we might have had that parachute, but now we don't. We have to be successful because we're not shaking hands anymore. We're not seeing the person, oh, congratulations, you're getting hired. Now it's just welcome to the cult, it's like on the Zoom meeting. So we have to be more concise and more straightforward with our decisions and feedback and be transparent and
Correct.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think that it always goes back to the hiring process because we look at someone and it happens from time to time that you get to the point where they get to the who interview and you're like, how did this guy make it all the way to the who interview, or how did they make it all the way to the culture fit? And then but you realize that like Bernard said, it's just you have to be blunt, because at the end of the day, you're not going to be watching what they're doing. You're not going to be looking at their activities on a daily basis. Maybe you have a report, but you don't know exactly what they're spending their time in. And so you have to make sure that you hire the maybe not the right person, but someone that is gonna fit all the categories or the right criteria that we're looking for. And so we know what the culture is like. We know what we're looking for, and so when they get to the onboarding process, they've already gone through a really extensive hiring process, and so probably 90% of the people that we interview don't make it all the way to the end, or maybe even more. I don't know. Carla may have the right numbers, but other than that, I think that it always goes back to the hiring process and having the right process in place.
I'm glad you brought up hiring process, because I got two questions left, and then I know you guys are crazy busy. We got lots of people to hire and onboard, and I wanna let you guys. I really appreciate you both coming on. Two questions, both equally serious and real questions. One, is it a requirement to have a beard if you want to be an SDR here at Predictable Revenue?
It is a requirement.
Yeah, it's a
Of course
requirement.
it is.
This is why I couldn't get a job. This is like a month's growth. Yeah, and as I think Tomas defined it yesterday, the struggle. I can just never, yeah.
Nice.
And I did trim, so
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm curious. Oh, I've got a little kiddo. Hang on a sec. Talk to me a little bit about what the post onboarding process looks like.
this is
Sorry.
and I think that Bernard can speak to this because he's been more involved in that area than I have.
Um, yeah, so there's no specific. Hold on one second. Am I on mute? No, I'm not on mute. No.
That was
There's
me.
specific. Okay. There's no specific processes, but the idea that we try to create within those 3 months or 2.5 months after the onboarding is to be as involved with the new hire as possible. Our structure over here at the PR is changing a little bit with the new managers, team lead roles is getting redefined a little bit. So a lot of this stuff is going to change, and we're going to try to figure it out as we go. But we're never going to leave you floating around by yourself, in this PR SDR ocean. It is a grind, and I mean, it's like we're going to hold your hand and we're going to let you go when we need to let you go. But try to check in at least twice a week with a new hire. There is one-on-ones weekly with your manager going forward. Then
Would you say,
team meetings,
as your job,
sorry.
like for an SDR, your commitment to the SDRs, you're never going to give them up. You're never going to let them down or
Exactly.
run around and desert them.
Desert them. Never desert them. Because if they are here, they want to be here because they went through the whole process too. And it's a tough process. The interview process, the onboarding process. I just like, we're gonna make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze. It's like you went through that squeeze, and yeah, making sure the juice is worth the squeeze for you at the end. Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. And last comment to Freddy. and then we'll wrap this up. What post onboarding? What is one of your favorite things that we do to keep that you do or the team does to keep the culture alive?
Oof, we've got a lot of events going on. So first of all, the Kerbathlon, right? And so we've got one coming up in February. So we've got a lot of cool activities, trainings, events. We've got I mean, we used to have the On Your Growth meetings. We also had the open mics. I think it was every other Thursday. We have, the beers and cheers, and so we try to keep the culture alive, even after the onboarding process. And so, we just let people be who they are. I
Can I
think
do a
that's
pitch
the
for?
biggest part.
Can I do a pitch for Finally Friday?
Sure.
Alex Rurik, Finally Friday.
What is Finally Friday?
Oh my God, that's the best time of your life. No, it's just like everybody in all the SDRs has an opportunity. It's a volunteer. You host a Finally Friday session. Beers and cheers is right after it, so it's allowed to bring your beer beforehand to the Finally Friday, and we have games, and it's really fun. It's open for everybody, SDRs and to the company. Actually, everybody has an invite to it. Alex, Vasco, awesome hosts. So
right on. Freddy, you mentioned beers and cheers and Kerbathlon. Can you share? Because I know what those are, but people listening maybe don't. And just before you jump in there, Stas from St. Petersburg is saying you guys are great fun, cultural, constructive, and open-minded. Thanks and greetings from St. Petersburg.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So the Kerbathlon. So it's a month-long activity where so we divide the whole company into two different teams, and so we get points, or we get points by the workout exercise activities that we do. So each activity could be running, it could be CrossFit, boxing, going to play basketball, whatever it is, you're able to get points. And so at the end of the whole month process, whichever team loses at the end of the month, when we were in the office, the team that loses is the one that has to cook for the team that wins. Right now, we just do it for fun because we can't technically get together. But yeah, it's still a lot of fun. In the whole process, you're trash talking to the other team, saying things like, Manuel is gonna beat all of us, so he should be his own team by himself.
Yeah.
So you just trash talk to the other team, and then of course you got you got the beers and cheers. So every Friday, we get together again, the whole company, and then we share the wins, we share the losses or the loss, and then we just share a beer, and that's pretty much what it is.
Just for clarification, we all have our own beers. We don't share one beer and like pass it around. Everybody gets a sip.
we could have
communion. It's communion beer.
Communion beer. Yeah, we just have one.
Kind of like mate in Argentina.
There you go. I would have to agree with Stas. You guys are fun. Thanks so much for coming on. I learned a ton. Veronica, can you throw their LinkedIn's in the chat again? I threw them up again, up at the top there. But if you're curious, if you got more questions, reach out to Freddy or Bernard, and we'll throw their LinkedIn in the chat shortly. Any parting words, guys? Any last kind of comments before we call it a day?
I think that if you've already got a process in place, listen to the people that you're onboarding, because they, most of the time, without you realizing, they have the answers that you're looking for. And so just trust the process and get feedback from the people you're onboarding.
I agree with Freddy. He couldn't have said it better. I agree 100%.
Right on. Well, thank you guys. It was great having you on. You guys did a great job. Thank you so much. Looking forward to having you guys back. Maybe we'll do this every day. That'd be kind of fun.
Maybe.
Find new things to talk about every day.
We also have to work.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. All right. Well, happy dialing, guys. Thanks to everybody who showed up in chat, and good to see you all. We'll see you all next week.
Thank
See
you
you
guys.
guys.
Bye bye.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.